Are you ready? Welcome to Deep in the Plus. I'm Rob Whiteside, and tonight with me is my very favorite. It's Tyler, man. How's it going, buddy?
Hey, Rob. Thank you so much for having me on. This is going to be really fun, actually. It's going to be a nice, pleasant episode, I think.
Very pleasant, as a matter of fact. And you know what? It could have gone a different way. And we'll talk about at the end, like, what your takeaways are from this movie. But I want to start by telling everybody that when Tyler first came to me about this movie, he was like, hey, let's watch Chicken Little. It's awful. And honestly... Honestly, I was like going, I kind of like that movie, so I don't really know why he doesn't like it. So Disney used to do this thing called hand-drawn animation, and then for a while it was good, and then came Home on the Range, and they were like, we give up. We're not going to do this anymore. They had tried out, it was 1995 when Toy Story came out. They tried out Dinosaur in 2000. That one was weird, but it was a fairly good movie. Used a lot of live backgrounds and things like that. Then they did Home on the Range, and then they were like, hey, let's go into this computer generated age. They did 3 movies. They did Chicken Little, they did Bolt, and then they also did a movie called Meet the Robinsons, which I love that movie. And so during that time, we have Chicken Little, and it's the story. It's the story of the Chicken Little. It's a fable about the sky falling, and kind of like the "Don't Cry Wolf" and "Nobody Will Believe You" sort of a situation. And that's really the frustration in this movie, isn't it? That the little chicken, his dad doesn't believe him. Right?
I mean, that's essentially the entire crux of this movie is the relationship between Chicken Little and his dad. And just how the movie is just one way for like the first 40 minutes, and then the second 40 minutes of the movie is just a completely different movie essentially. It's bizarre. Yeah,
and you know what? It's so I say this about The Grinch all the time. The Grinch was Dr. Seuss. It was a children's book. It's a very short book, and then they took it and they made it a half an hour, TV special, and then they went, let's make it like an hour and a half long movie. So when you do that, you have to add a lot of things to it. It's unique the way the approach they took to this one, because it's a little bit of everything. I mean, it's the fable of Chicken Little, but mixed with this whole village that is very Zootopia-like of animals that walk and talk, and because of that, they've got all these inside jokes. And I popped some of these down, and I'm sure that you were doing this too. But it's a comedy. There's joke after joke about animals living human lives, right? So there's a basket full of kids that the rabbit mom is pulling out, and it's just like miles of children because rabbits multiply. There's a chameleon who's a stop sign, and then when he turns it to go, he turns green, and when he turns it to stop, he turns red. There's the bull in the china shop. So there's a bull who actually owns a china shop. I mean, it basically writes itself, right?
There is so many great gags, and it feels like the way that they start movies like Monsters, Inc., where it's like, we need to introduce you to how this world works before you can start to have fun with like who the characters are and stuff. Like I feel like even the opening scene when they're in the school and Patrick Stewart as a sheep is like reading off the list of names, and it's like, yeah, they're all very silly names. That's how the world is. Just go with it. It is very Zootopia. They're animals. They wear clothes. They have cell phones.
Yeah, and the Patrick Stewart character, I think it's Mr. Woolensworth or something like that. He's teaching mutton class, and then when he's conjugating the verbs, and he's like reading to the class, and it's like to, and they're like bah, and he goes to be bah. That's comedy right there. And Patrick Stewart, I mean, perfect. Sir Patrick Stewart is there as a sheep teaching mutton. There were a couple others in the names. Fish out of water is the name of the fish, and runt of the litter is the name of the pig. And one of my favorite bits in there with Fish out of water is when they're going to see if he's okay, and they tap on his helmet, and Chicken Little says, "Don't tap on the glass. They hate that." Yeah. I feel like I say that like all the time, and it's from this, and probably my kids were like going, "Why do you say that?" So when this movie came out, we saw it in the theater. I actually really liked it. It had a very interesting soundtrack, which we'll talk about in a minute, a great voice cast, which we'll talk about later. But one of the things that it does is it starts out, and you kind of get that it's a comedy, because it starts out with Chicken Little's dad, Buck Cluck, talking about where to begin. And so he starts out with this kind of magical feeling in the intro, and then they cut to a Lion King sunrise, which is funny.
I felt like that was. I feel like I've seen that somewhere else where they're like, "Let's start the movie." Wait, hang on, not that way. They always do it that way. I swear I've seen that like 3 other places.
And then they go.
I don't remember this movie or not.
It was probably this movie, because apparently you like it better than you thought you did. But the other thing they do is the book opening, and then they cut to like you're already in the process of the sky falling part has already kind of happened, right? So everybody like he's yelling and screaming, the whole town's going crazy, and that's when you get a kind of a glimpse of this sort of, it's like the Back to the Future town, actually, the way that it's set up, like, with the town hall in the middle, and they're like running around in circles. And he kind of does that same thing where he decides he's going to catch the school bus by hitching a ride with gum and a lollipop underneath a car, sort of like Marty and his skateboard.
It's just to show how much like he doesn't fit in with this world because he's so short, that like the whole world is against him essentially, which is also the plot of the movie. And it's very weird because there are other small characters, but they're only like an inch or two taller than he is, but they make fun of him specifically, but they give him these big nerdy glasses. And I was talking to you before the show started, I'm like, this movie was one of the first digital 3D movies that was in theaters. Did they make his glasses that way because they are shaped like the real 3D digital 3D glasses that you get for free at a movie theater? Because I remember when I saw it, they were green. They were specifically Chicken Little 3D glasses. So I was like, is that a reason they did that in his character design, or the glasses are just because nerd? But yeah, it was. I was very much thinking it was like, there we go. Yeah, they look identical to the 3D glasses you get in theaters, and that's how they marketed the film.
Oh my gosh! Look how much alike you guys look. Oh my, what the? No, I mean, obviously they're going for the nerdy look because he's got the. I mean, he's got the striped shirt. He's got the glasses, and maybe the haircut. Is supposed to feel that way, but he's supposed to be a little bit of a nerd. You really learn that in dodgeball class with him, where he is, kind of a target. Yeah, exactly. No, but it's he's kind of become an outcast because of the whole. He said the sky was falling. His dad didn't believe him. Nobody believed him, and so then now they're apparently a year later going to make a movie about it in his town, about this dumb little chicken who got hit in the head with an acorn and thought the sky was falling.
Crazy Stupid Little Chicken was the name of the movie?
I think so.
Or something mean like that.
So then they keep going back and forth, though, between him trying to redeem himself, and the more he redeems himself, the more he screws things up. He loses his pants on the way to school, and so then he gets into a locker and he makes himself some new pants, and he
he's
drops
very
into
resourceful.
and he drops into the cheerleaders locker room, and that doesn't go his way. And so finally he decides that he's learned the best way to do it's going to be like his dad, make him proud, and join the baseball team. And he keeps getting pushed off, and of course the star of the football team is also baseball team is Foxy Loxy.
Football's another movie.
Yeah, it was probably intended to be the sequel. No.
Yeah.
So
Foxy Loxy, I believe, is that like the antagonist of the fairy tale? Is like this fox trying to trick all these animals so that they could eat them or something like that?
Sure.
As far as I remember.
I'm going to tell you, I went way deep into this movie. I did not go deep into the fairy tale or the fable, and I probably should have. But
okay. The movie doesn't do that either.
Right, and one of the things it talked about in in all of the information that I looked up was that originally this was supposed to be a female chicken and not a male chicken, and it was originally voiced by Holly Hunter for the first months of production, and then they decided, wait a minute, this should probably be a little dude instead, and they talked to such actors as like Matthew Broderick about it, and then ended up with Zach Braff on it. One of the things about Zach Braff, and I think he is great in this. This is perfect, yes. And it made me wonder why he didn't do more voice work. He and Gary Marshall both do a lot of sort of stutter talk. And there were times in rewatching it with this that it kind of sort of got me a little unnerved, especially the Gary Marshall. He's like, oh, well, your mom, she just, I mean,
Yeah,
and I'm thinking to myself, is it scripted this way? Does it say, or did they just have them read it and then do themselves?
I gotta assume that the way they're talking is very as if they actually normally when you record a movie, none of the voice actors ever see each other, but it feels very much like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, where it sounds like the two of these people were in the same room and they were reading their lines to really get that awkward feeling, because it works, the whole like awkward stuttering between these two characters where it's just like they can't ever be real or talk to each other in like an honest, real way, which is sort of the whole crux of the movie with or Abby Mallard, who's Ugly Duckling. She's like, you guys need to talk and get closure. And I think it probably had to be, to some extent, improvised, because the movie is pretty solid in its like line delivery. It's not like a character says a line for 3 seconds and then it goes to the next character. There's a lot of over talking, which makes it feel like it's been improvised, but I think it was just they had them all in the same room and they wanted to make it feel real, like these characters are all friends or they're actually family members and it's just awkward, or they have these little riffs that they do with each other where they're like very quippy back and forth. And normally I hate that. Normally I really hate when there's like improvised dialogue in a movie. But when it's like this, or when it's like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, it feels more organic and it really gives more life to the characters' relationships.
Well, and
so I do like it.
Just like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, though, again, it's a short story that they had to stretch, and so a lot of this is just original material, and so because there is so much room to fill, they can fill it with jokes and gags and different things like that. It was funny that I was just like reading through the chat, and they at some point started talking about the game Portal, so they're very engaged. They're very engaged. But one thing that was said was that some of the old original stories talk about like the fox eating the people in the like Chicken Little, and it's I think they went the right way with this one. But again, you and I talked about this a little bit before, and it feels very Zootopia in the fact that it's this
furries everywhere.
Nobody said that, Tyler. Nobody said that. No,
I'm saying it is very like the way the characters are designed. Like Zootopia, they really went for a more realistic like body proportions and stuff. But this movie is very much, it's like if you went to a fur con, it's just a bunch of heads and then t-shirts and paws, and they almost a lot of the characters look like similar body structures and then an animal head.
Yeah.
So that's why I was like, it's certainly more in the furry direction than Zootopia went, where they were more realistic, looking to their animal versions.
So let's talk about all the references. There were a ton of references, and I probably missed a bunch of them. But in the beginning, when Chicken Little first is starting to yell and ring the bell on the building, the town goes crazy, and the water tower. There's like in their town, it's like a giant ball, and it falls down and it starts this boulder thing, and it's rolling, and it rolls into a movie theater where they're playing Raiders of the Lost Ark. And it was actual footage of Raiders of the Lost Ark, which I think was cool, because this was not a time where they already owned Lucasfilm. So they've got footage of Raiders of the Lost Ark going on. The boulder comes through, so you got that reference. The boulder bounces on some cars, and I swear, and I don't know this for a fact, that it sounds like the Mickey Mouse theme, like dun 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 dun, like as we're falling on, right? And then one of the 100%. We're kind of jumping ahead, but there is an alien situation, and one of the aliens has a Mickey Mouse watch. There's a Star Wars reference where they say, Luke, I'm your father. And then there's another one in the movie at the end where he's going, stay on target, which is, again, a Star Wars reference. So there are just all these little things in it that it's like the guys were having a lot of fun making this, all these inside jokes about the animals, all these pop culture references. But I feel like it stays that, like that part of it, that pop culture thing, still holds up. But I wonder if it will in 10, 20 more years.
That was the thing. Okay, so that's why I said that I remember this movie being terrible, because it was like all pop culture references. Like there wasn't like there's a there's some kind of pop song in almost every scene, and it's not just in the background. Characters in the frame are either singing it or humming it or referencing it in some way. Like, the thing that makes Runt of the Litter calm down is that he sings "Stayin' Alive," and as he's freaking out in the spaceship. And I guess we'll talk about how the movie's structured and the alien bits and everything. But yeah, I was like, I just remember it being full of pop culture references. And now, watching it, I don't remember many of them. So I either found myself... I was reacting like a pun where it's like so stupid, but I found myself laughing at the reference where everyone's yelling at each other, and then it's like, what? This guy's an alien? You knew about this? Darth Vader is Luke's father? Like, that was everyone just freaking out about secrets and stuff.
So here's something though, that when I'm watching this, and again, we're to the point in the movie, we're kind of going through the movie but talking about what we like about it too. So when we get to the part where he's trying to make his dad proud, he actually gets up to bat. And when he gets up to bat, it's for the big game, and and everybody's like, oh, not Chicken Little, because he's going to screw it up. And there's a scene which I look at now after COVID, and I see very differently, where the mayor is sitting here and it says "distance yourself," and he's in this little box.
How is this? Somebody meme this.
Right,
exactly.
Take
a screenshot right now and make this an internet meme for
COVID. Right, exactly. So, I mean, when I watched this, I watched it at Easter this year. So this is me watching it, or last year. So this is me watching it again. But because it's got a chick in it, right? It's like got a chick and a duck, and that's kind of Eastery. So very loosely, there's not a ton of Easter movies. There's Hop and like, I don't know, something else. But so we watched this at Easter. What? Rise of the Guardians.
Rise of the Guardians?
Yeah, that's kind of Easter. So we watched it, and that stood out to me, obviously, when I saw that sign. So I thought that was kind of neat. But so he wins the game, and then his dad loves him again. So what the message is here, children, is that if to earn your dad's love, you need to win the big game. Go ahead.
I hate this. I hate it so much. It's like, oh, son, you should never trade for baseball. You're not going to be good at it. I'm not proud of you. Oh, but you won, so now I believe in you. And that whole like trying to make your dad proud thing frustrates me to no end, especially when it's like, oh, now because you succeeded in the thing I didn't believe you at, and everyone else likes you, now I like you. I'm trying to think of another. It happens in Eddie the Eagle, which is a live-action skiing movie with Hugh Jackman. It happens in How to Train Your Dragon, when Stoic is like, you're not my son anymore. Hiccup saves the day. Oh, I'm sorry. Like, there needs to be more than just like, oh, you succeeded. That means I love you.
Right.
I hate it so much.
Bad message. But so one of the things after he wins and they go home and everything is great now, that I think is interesting, back to the whole sort of Zootopia tie-in, is the idea of his house. And so his house is a chicken coop with like, and you can't see it in this picture, but with the ramp up to the house. And then once you get inside the house, like there's like some chicken wire in different places, and there's like all the things in his room are like egg-shaped. The
car is egg-shaped.
Right.
Too.
The bed is egg-shaped. He's got the egg pillow. He's got, everything is egg-shaped. So it's a little over the top with how that would be. But I think that's a fun thing, again, that they must have had a good time doing. The wallpaper looks like chicken feet, footprints. So,
and there's a lot of the chicken wire on the windows is like this octagonal shape, and so is like the pattern on his bed. And I wonder if that was a deliberate connection to the piece of the sky that he says he found and was shaped like a stop sign. I'm assuming that was a deliberate design attempt.
Yeah,
which I also.
Yeah. So so then in this he's flying high, right? He's very excited that his dad loves him again because he made him proud. He loves him again. And then he goes in and he's standing at the window and he sees another piece of the sky fall, and it falls into his room somehow, in through his window. and he realizes it's some sort of a panel, which is, again, a neat twist because that wasn't what happened in the original story. But this is, we have to fill this movie. We have to tell a bigger story. And they tell this story with this panel that falls in that it's kind of like it looks invisible because it's reflecting what's behind it. And so they play all these little jokes with the panel and it's reflecting behind. But in this case, he gets to call his friends over and his friends see it and now they believe him, but Dad still doesn't. Like, he doesn't talk to Dad about it. And that's when Abby gets all into her, her thing about, hey, you got to talk to Dad.
I love this part of the movie because I was talking about how it's a very tight movie in that it goes from, not only does it go from scene to scene very quickly, but there's not a whole lot of dead space or there's nothing much happening. Like, every scene is very important and every scene is full of so many gags but also plot points, and so I was saying the movie's only an hour and 20 minutes, it barely hits the 90-minute mark, but I don't think it needs to. I feel like this movie is very tightly scripted. This scene where he wins the baseball game, and I remember there being a lot more baseball than there was, but I was very happy it was only a small portion of the film because that feels like Act 1, and Act 2 begins as soon as this panel hits him in the face again. And from here, it feels like we've jumped completely into sci-fi territory. The first chunk of the movie doesn't reference anything about the actual sky being a piece of the sky or the whole alien plot line. And so when it got into this bit, the music changes, and suddenly, from here on, the rest of the movie is very, darkly lit, and there's deep shadows everywhere, and it's very creepy. And, like I was saying about gags, she's doing dialogue in the background, but there's still, Fish is doing all these great gags with the panel. But yeah, the movie completely switches tone. And as soon as, we're going to talk about how the whole alien thing happens, when that music kicks in, it's so creepy and genuinely terrifying that, I love the second act of this movie onwards, which is where I was it completely shifts tone, and I love it. I love the sci-fi aspect.
All that stuff happens at night, too. I mean, all of that, it not only changes tone, but it changes scenery, right? So it's all happening at night, and they find the panel, Fish out of water, being just the rascal that he is. He turns it on, he gets on it, and somehow it takes him back up to the spaceship, and he happens to have a glow stick for some reason. So they follow him by following the glow stick. They go back up to the baseball diamond, and then in there they see the alien ship come down, and they get on it, and now it's a sci-fi movie. There's aliens, and they're trying to figure out what's going on with this, and they just want to save their friend, and they go and save him, and they get out, but then the aliens are chasing after them, and
they see a map of the universe with big X's through all of the other planets before Earth, and Earth has a big red circle around it, and they're like, oh my god, these aliens are going to destroy this planet, which comes back at the end in a really funny way. This whole movie is set up really well, to be completely honest.
Yeah, and Will was saying in the chat, let's talk about the fish. Fish out of water is obviously the comic relief here. He's the cool guy in their little crew because, run of the litter, he's a scaredy cat.
Cool guy.
Oh, yeah, he's the cool guy, but he's not in their crew. Really, he's just in the movie, but he's not in their crew. So Fish out of water, there's a place where he starts to make a giant skyscraper out of paper, and then he gets on top of it like he's like King Kong, and that was kind of funny. And he's
nothing to do with the movie.
Right, exactly. He's just random. He's random, and because he really never says anything though either. And there's this funny part where he is talking to one of the aliens, and then Chicken Little apparently speaks whatever Fish out of water is speaking, so there's a communication there. That was kind of funny too.
Star Wars, where it's like
Chewbacca
can't.
Yeah, no, you're right. I was going to talk about Groot and Rocket, the whole I am Groot thing. Yeah. So anyway, all that was really funny, and it brings something more to it. And so then now you've got space humor because like they're running from these aliens, and the aliens come chasing after them through a cornfield and basically make crop circles.
Yeah, unintentionally,
unintentionally trying to catch them. So that part was funny.
Face hugger references to like the actual movie Alien, and they're kind of designed like the War of the Worlds tripods.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Alien creatures in a way. I think they mentioned that. Like I was reading through the Wikipedia, and they're like, the director looked back and he's like, "Yeah, it's a little War of the Worlds," because they even have like the laser things in the finale that like vaporize people, but it doesn't really vaporize people.
So they meet Kirby, who is an alien child who gets lost from the ship, and so they have figured out that Kirby is one of the aliens, and then the invasion starts because they're going to the parents are mad because Kirby is lost, and they're going to invade, or at least everyone is convinced they're going to invade Earth. The sky opens up, and now all pandemonium, right? So everybody's running around. They see it. They all know now that what Chicken Little had said was true. After there was a scene that I guess that I skipped over between when they find the ship and then when the townspeople are coming to find the ship. And the townspeople, it's one of those things where it's almost painful, where they've got to get up to the playground so they can see this ship, and they're going, come on, and they're like running. It's like, come on, and like the ship's about to take off, and then the mayor stops and goes, oh, a penny. So
the mayor voiced by Don Knotts, who's fantastically funny in this movie.
So that's a frustrating point because at this point you kind of feel for the character and you want him to be justified and he's not, and then the whole town thinks it's happening again, and the dad's like, hey, I'm sorry guys, and he says, Dad, don't you believe me this time? And he's like, sorry, I don't. So now this is twice that Buck has forsaken the child. But then, again, shortly after that, the invasion happens, and now all of a sudden he believes Chicken Little. Because there are aliens literally coming from the sky now. He can't not believe him. Not really the way you'd want that to shake out. You'd want him to believe him before that all happened, but I guess that's just kind of how the movie goes.
He's like, they're after this alien. I need you to help me. And he's like, what? No, we have to get inside. And he's still like, even in this point, doesn't believe him, to the point that they have to like have this big like open sort of, I wouldn't call it an argument, but they start to open up and spill all their like things that frustrate them about each other. And Chicken Little's like, you're not there for me. And then the dad's like, your mom was better at this stuff. Oh, and we didn't even talk about that the mom isn't there. Can we dissect why all Disney movies don't have the mom there?
Yeah,
it's because the parent needs a story arc as well, right?
No, I mean, there's always an absent parent, either one or both. There's always an absent parent because it allows for the purpose and the reason for the journey to happen. So, if both the parents were there to control the situation, then, they wouldn't go do what they were going to do. I mean, The Lion King, the dad dies, and that's what inspires the journey for him to run away. I mean, different things that are happening there.
It's very rare we see die.
Well, and again, that's the parts of the movie that I don't like, but those are also the ones that are like key emotion movies. I mean, Up is hurtful to watch when Ellie dies, and at the same time, it's such a moving movie because of it. I think that's one of the things that has to happen in these movies is, I remember with Nanny McPhee, which is not a Disney movie, but Emma Thompson talking about this whole theory of the absent parent, because in that one it's there's no
watch this.
Yeah, there's no mom, so they hire the nanny, and that's what happens in that movie. So there is usually an absent parent. In this case, it just happens to be the mom. But you're right; that's not really justification for why he wouldn't believe him. But now he wants to help him.
Aladdin wouldn't be a completely different movie if Jasmine's mom was there. But for the Sultan, the whole thing is like he can't really talk to Jasmine because he's not very good with that kind of stuff. and that was his. I mean, he doesn't have a story arc, but that's just the excuse that the relationship between Jasmine and her dad is so terrible that he doesn't really listen to her that much until the very end of the movie.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's the whole thing for, like, I guess that is like, yeah, if your mom were here, she would be able to figure this stuff. She would listen to you, Chicken Little. Like, with that, is that what the movie would be? The mom, they'd be like, Mom, Dad doesn't believe me, but there's an alien, and she'd be like, okay, I believe you, son. Like, with that
maybe
movie.
Yeah, maybe. All right, so now we know that there's an alien invasion. They got to get the child back, and there's this whole chase thing that's happening for them to get the child back to the parents. They get him back to the parents' ship, and then once they're inside, now we're learning about the parents and who they are. And it seems like they're big, scary, but this is where it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, right? Where it's all this like showmanship, but they're really kind of teeny aliens. But they're using these these big robot bodies, and they're using these big screens to make everything freak out. You think everybody's been zapped into, like a part, but they've been zapped into the ship. Or into like this kind of phantom zone sort of a situation where they're just like floating around.
This big void.
Yeah, this big void. And so after that's all said and done, they make peace with the aliens. You find out that they really weren't there to attack. They just came there for acorns and they couldn't find them on any of the other planet.
Every other planet in the universe has no acorns, but the sign for Oakey Oaks specifically says best acorns in the universe, and that's why they chose Earth.
Yep.
Which is ridiculous. But there's like some weird connection between how like they're bad parents, just the same way Buck was a bad parent because he didn't listen to his kid, and then also they just completely forgot that their kid was still on Earth and didn't like look for him, and they just assumed that somebody had taken him. So Buck gets to like stand up for Chicken Little and be like, hey, my kid didn't take it, your son. You guys left him here. It's like your fault. You gotta care for your children and stuff. And yeah. So and then we got good voices there. O'Hara.
So let's go down the list. So we talked about Patrick Stewart, Zach Braff, Don Knotts. Joan Cusack is Abby Mallard, or Ugly Duckling.
She's
yeah, and so this was she's Jessie. So Wallace Shawn is in it. He's the principal of the school, and he's Rex. So you've got some Toy Story tie-ins here. Gary Marshall plays Buck. Steve Zahn plays Run to the Litter, which I think he does an amazing job in this. Fred Willard and Catherine O'Hara are the parents of the aliens. Patrick Warburton makes a small cameo sort of moment in there, and then Harry Shearer is the voice of from Simpsons. He is the and other things, obviously, like this is Spinal Tap, but he is the voice of the commentator at the baseball game,
which makes that whole scene just like the ongoing droning voice, just like, and he's running up to the plate and he's got it and he's, oh my god, he's going the right way. Like he's just carrying that entire scene himself, and it's so wonderful.
And Amy Sedaris is Foxy. But in the very end of the movie, they're now going to do another movie about Chicken Little. But in this one, they make him out to be the hero instead of the stupid little chicken. And in this one, Chicken Little is voiced by Adam West as like the hero, and that's amazing. I love that was an Adam West movie. We talked about Don Knotts. I think this was Don Knotts' last role, as a matter of fact, before he passed away. So he was a Disney legend because he was in Gus, the movie about the kicking mule. He was in the Apple Dumpling Gang, both of those movies. So Don Knotts was great. But it's it was a great cast, so that was going for it. And then on top of that, you had some great music. I mean, it was a weird choice of music. Like, it was this sort of 70s disco, Run to the Litter. There was one part where he is being drugged away with his mom, and she says, if you don't come with me, no more Barbra Streisand for you. Yeah. And he's like, no, not Barbara.
I'm proud of this. What a weird joke, and then it's like not even a setup for later. We don't hear any Barbra Streisand music in the movie. It was just a very bizarre joke that I actually laughed so hard at.
Stir It Up was one of them, and thanks to Will for sending me that early on in the day to get us ramped up for this. But There's also "Tell Me What You Want" from the Spice Girls. A lot of them they sing themselves as they're going through. Chicken Little in that scene we were looking at before was singing "We Are the Champions" from Queen. Carole King, "It's Too Late" is in this one. "It's the End of the World as We Know It" from REM. That's years later. That's a 90s song. "I Will Survive" by Gloria Gaynor. Were there two?
There's
I
an
know.
original one.
I know one little slip.
They sang the REM song.
Oh, they sang it. Oh, I got you. Yeah. Okay. "Ain't No Mountain High Enough," and then of course in the end credits they sing "Don't Go Breaking My Heart." So again, sort of a weird mix of music, but it works. I feel like it works. It's a good solid soundtrack. You said that you used to be a huge fan of the soundtrack.
Yeah, I bought the CD because "Shake Your Tail Feather," which I think was a Cheetah Girls song, is also in here. Get it? Because tail feather, because chickens have tails and their feathers. And also the Bare Naked Ladies song, "One Little Slip." Like, I loved those songs so much. And "One Little Slip" was specifically written for this movie as well, because they mentioned the whole "they'll believe me when I say that the sky is falling" is like a line in the song. And it's a good little like intro song, and then Stir It Up is like the montage for training for baseball. Like there seems to be, like I said, a pop song in almost every scene, and sometimes it works. Like, I forget what the very sad song is that plays between Chicken Little and his dad. It's like, "Bruise you, you bruise me." Like, it's a very, very melodramatic piano ballad that also was written for the movie. Like,
is that all I Know by Five for Fighting? Maybe.
Yes.
Sure.
Was that made for the movie?
I don't know. Let's say that it is.
The score is also fantastic. The John Debney music is really good, especially when you have that alien chase. And it's like the whole movie just has this like quaint town feel to it, like Hocus Pocus or something.
Yeah.
This movie should have taken place at Halloween, honestly. And then we go, once the aliens arrive, or the piece of the sky falls into his bedroom, suddenly the music just gets like very like sci-fi kind of like theremin type music, and then the chase music with the aliens is such a crazy score, and it's so frightening too. Like the way they do the aliens is scary, and the music just backs that up so much.
So one of the reasons I felt like picking, and you brought this movie up, but one of the reasons I was excited to talk about this one is I do feel like this is sort of a hidden gem on Disneyplus. I think there are a lot of people who probably missed this movie first time around. Looking at the box office numbers, it says it cost $150 million to make, $314 million that it made at the box office. I'm guessing that's domestic and international, though. They did a really big push for this movie, and I started thinking about, what things do I remember from there being in the parks, and I don't really remember there being much, but I looked this up, and apparently at the Paris studios, they did this.
Oh God, it's so ugly.
Which I thought was like, oh my gosh, like I wish they had done that like in the domestic parks. And then I found this picture from Hollywood Studios, and I do not remember this.
What?
I don't remember this. Like I've been to Disney a lot, and this would have been right around 2005. This is at Epcot. I mean, not Epcot. This is Hollywood Studios. This is right behind Brown Derby. Yes, correct.
That's the Disney Junior building then.
Correct.
Yeah, because I can see the facade. Oh God, that's
right.
That's horrifying. I don't know that. I never knew that existed.
And then they did when like they had that what was it, the Old Friends thing where they brought back characters. They brought back Abby and Chicken Little to the park to do meet and greets for a little while. So I mean, so there were some tie-ins here. I mean, obviously there's not a Chicken Little dark ride, although that could be fun if they had that. I just don't think it has the juice to warrant an attraction like that. But I assume all this was done originally to promote the movie and so that everybody would come and see the movie.
Boy, they should have shoved this into Alien Encounter. The alien tech was very Lilo and Stitch's Great Escape kind of vibes. Yeah. And all I could think was like, boy, this kind of looks like Stitch's Great Escape while I was watching the aliens spaceship scenes. And someone in the chat says that Tom Corliss now owns that giant inflatable.
I mean, I wish he had it somewhere.
This is a hidden gem. Like I had said to you, let's watch something terrible. How about Chicken Little? And halfway through the movie, I was like, this movie's really good, actually. I feel really bad for being so mean about it, because it is a solidly made movie. It's a lot of Disney movies now are not really gag driven. The Mickey Mouse cartoons, those are what you'd call gag driven. Almost every shot has some kind of joke in it. Like SpongeBob is a gag driven show where it's really powered by storyboards, and rather than like, let's put the camera here and just have Moana sing for like solid 2.5 minutes. This was they really wanted to make a very weird comedy, and they were like, hey, what if we took this fairy tale and put just a bizarre spin on it? And honestly, I'm a little bit of a sci-fi person, and I like it. I think the whole, like I said, the whole Act 2 switch over to a sci-fi movie just makes it so enjoyable.
Before we go on, Arlo, I think he needs to see this. So this was the
No!
California Adventure. Yeah, I mean, it was, yeah. I mean,
the facade is already weird, but then that makes it even more bizarre.
Well, and the irony that this is Chicken Little and he's huge. I mean, yeah. So it was really. I like when they do stuff like that. I don't think maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think we'll see that again. I loved seeing stuff like that kind of tie in with the parks. It's the best place to pull in that synergy. I mean, with Zootopia, they had, Nick and Judy in the parks. But I mean, I don't know. Stuff like that's really fun. When Stitch was a big deal, they had a huge inflatable Stitch at the opening to Hollywood Studios when you walked in that little like garden area before you walk through the gate. That was kind of cool. Like I hope they go back to doing this stuff at some point. But yeah, that's but like
not taking the.
That's just a King Kong sort of a situation. I mean, I kind of miss those California letters too from the original California Adventure, but that's probably just me. So before we go to your final thoughts, anything else that you want to talk about? We talked about the soundtrack. We talked about the great cast. We talked about the kind of the hidden jokes, the connection to it being sort of Zootopia-like in its way that it's put together. Is there anything else that we missed along the way?
I remember finding myself laughing at all like the side character dialogue. Like there's like during the opening scene there, he's like, the acorn of the flat, and he's like, what? It was a moose throwing ice cream? Like, it's just some random off-screen voice saying this, or like he's trying to throw this acorn to like prove that there's a spaceship there, and he's like, look, there's a spaceship, and then you just hear, ooh, bad throw, and he's like, here, no, sorry, let me try it again, and then he throws it, and the whole crowd goes, ooh, bad throw. Like there was all these little things that not necessarily the main characters were doing that was funny, just all these side characters or off-screen voices. I love off-screen dialogue or sound effects. I always find that really funny, especially in movies like Airplane or those like the gag-driven films. Yeah. So I find a lot of that stuff really funny. But I think the main thing that shows that they cared about making a gag or gag movies was in the end bit with Adam West being like hero version of Chicken Little. He's like trying to be like all heroish, and the animator did this bit where he's like, I'm gonna have to go over there. Like he just has this moment where he's like about to say it, and then he stops himself. But it's just so well animated. I remember doing that like on repeat. Me and my brother used to mimic that scene because it was just we recognized the comedy that came with a movie inside of a movie and how they make fun of that kind of stuff. And I don't think a lot of people really get those kind of jokes when it's like kind of meta about filmmaking. So, or like camera based jokes like in like Top Secret or something. So I really love those jokes as a kid.
So then let's get your final thought on this, but I wanted to challenge you by saying that we have someone in the chat saying I'm still not convinced. So if this is what I think it is for you, tell me, with much conviction, Tyler Mann, would you recommend this movie?
I normally watch attempts at comedy and I find them embarrassing, especially in American television and American comedies. So to watch this and see just a well-paced, tightly designed movie with a really interesting twist in the second act onward, I honestly went into this being like, oh, here we go. This movie I remember being terrible, and being pleasantly surprised by how there's a lot of well-timed jokes and gags and little hidden things in the background. So I actually was very pleasantly surprised that I enjoyed this movie upon rewatching it for Deep in the Plus. And I would recommend, if anyone else had like reservations about watching it, to maybe give it another try, especially once it hits the sci-fi jokes from Act 2 onwards, because that's, normally I'd say at least give it 20 minutes, but the first 20 minutes of this is so drastically different than what the rest of it is. Like, you can't recommend The Good Place and then not watch after season 1, because so much stuff happens after that that makes this show special. So I would say, yeah, give this movie another chance. I was expecting it to be bad, even though I liked it as a kid. I was very pleasantly surprised that it was still a very funny movie that I enjoyed.
Yeah, so before we go on, Arlo has a question in the chat of, is this better than Home on the Range? And honestly, it's been a minute since I've watched Home on the Range, and that's it, it's in my head. In my head, Home on the Range was not all that great, and I blame it for the downfall of hand-drawn animation from Disney. But I mean, it's definitely one that I'd like for us to do on Deep in the Plus down the road too. So, you know, we'll see. But before we go any further too, thank you guys for watching. But I really want to say that if you enjoyed it, please give us a like. We really appreciate it. It helps people find the video. And if you haven't subscribed to WDWNT Entertainment channel, please go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so that you can hear the next time we start ranting about some other movie that's deep in the Disney Plus library. So that said,
every Tuesday.
I will tell you, this is actually a favorite of mine, and again, it's one of those that I feel like is a kind of like a hidden gem. There were those 3 movies that I feel like were in that area where it was Chicken Little and it was Meet the Robinsons and Bolt, and I feel like they were all kind of done together, and they were all, I think, missed by a lot of people. This was them doing computer-generated animation. They tried to come out of that with Princess and the Frog and Winnie the Pooh, and they went, no, we're going back. We're doing Tangled. We're going to do that computer generated again. And I think that, you know, it's really well done. I think it's funny. I think it's kind of next generation storytelling for Disney. It is not, you know, the typical Fox and the Hound. It is not the typical, you know, the old school Disney, but it's not quite what we see today with Moana and those type of movies too. So I think it's a very special, unique story to be tied in to the, you know, to the Disney universe. And I would definitely recommend it to anybody who's never seen it. And if you haven't seen it in a minute, like Tyler hadn't, go back and watch it, because, you know, you may see things that you hadn't seen before. It is really kind of a fun little movie. It's only 81 minutes, doesn't take a lot of your time, but they pack a lot into those 81 minutes. And I think you would agree. And I think you mentioned that earlier, Tyler.
Yeah.
So
I couldn't have put it better myself.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys again for joining us. We really appreciate it. And don't forget to tune in next Tuesday night. We're going to be talking about the Muppet movie. So come on back. We'll see you then.
Classic.
Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good one.